Hello and welcome to Thought for the Day. It was a massive privilege for me to be involved recently in Lauris Church's Messy Church event. I'd heard of this over the last few years but never been involved. Like many of you, I imagine, I didn't really know what to expect, so I looked it up, and this is what I found. Messy Church is a form of church that involves celebration, creativity and hospitality. We're all used to church being celebratory, but maybe creativity and hospitality are less in evidence in a standard church service, the sort that people expect to find when they arrive at church on Sunday. Well, this was on a Friday evening, and celebratory, creative and hospitable was exactly what it was. So Messy Church is a way of doing church that encourages people who wouldn't normally enter a church building, who would probably never be persuaded to come on a Sunday, to meet God in a way that's acceptable to them. It's fun and it's messy. The mess comes in the form of art and craft activities, aimed primarily at children, but accessible also to the adults that accompany them. There's a biblical story which determines the theme of the event, and the theme is supported by the different creative activities. There's a brief time of worship, and the whole thing finishes with a shared meal. I was put in charge of the prayer table. This involved heart-shaped sequins and a big bowl of water, and yes, there was mess. I was a teacher for 40 years, and if there's one thing I know about teaching, it's that you can't teach someone else anything properly unless you fully understand it from the fundamentals up yourself. So when I was faced with a 3-year-old desperate to have a go at a prayer, I really had to think how to make the concept accessible at some level to this very young mind. I can't be sure what she took from the experience, but she did come back several times with beautiful prayers for, I think, most of the people she knew. And then you have the 13-year-olds who find the whole idea of church challenging, but who were there and engaging with what we had to offer, asking the difficult questions and expecting meaningful answers. At the very least, it opens up the conversation. In these increasingly secular times, we do need to find new ways to engage people with God and His church. In the past, people were often pulled into church by social pressure and expectations, on a Sunday, inside a cold and uncomfortable church building, to listen to a very prescribed service liturgy that was probably largely incomprehensible to them, in a language that kept them separate from, rather than bringing them closer to God. This kind of church was very much man-made and very tidy, everyone sitting in tidy rows and speaking only at certain times, with very much preset words. Celebratory, yes, but not creative or particularly hospitable. Tidy church. And for many people this is the way in which they are most comfortable meeting their God, and so long may it continue while it works for them. But I don't think God is particularly tidy. Have you seen an aardvark or a duck-billed platypus? God is wildly creative, and He gave us a hugely productive world that has everything we need. He is massively hospitable. And we know that Jesus wasn't tidy in the way He did church. His church wasn't in a particular building on a particular day. He didn't demand that people came to Him at a particular time. He went out and He met them where they were in their lives, by lakes, up mountains, in towns, in the countryside, in market squares, at weddings and parties. He walked and he talked with them, and He sat down where they were amongst them. He met them where they were most comfortable. And He was very creative in the way He delivered His message. He told stories where the characters were people like them and those around them. Stories of shepherds and vineyards and masters and servants. And He made certain that His congregation were well fed. Remember the loaves and the fishes. Well, at our Messy Church, there were chips and sausages, hospitality, Llanidloes style. And aren't humans naturally messy? Who's lucky enough to live a life that isn't a bit of a mess in some way? Church should be the place where anyone can bring the mess in their lives and give it to God to help them tidy it up. Remember, God came in human form to experience exactly how messy human life can be. We shouldn't be afraid to bring mess into the life of the church. So if you hadn't had a go at messy church yet, let me encourage you to give it a try. Borrow a child from somewhere and come as a recipient, or maybe even offer to come to the next one as a helper. The more of us there are there, the messier it will be, to the glory of God. Thank you.